What if your power went out for weeks in negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit weather and you still slept like a baby? Sounds like a fantasy, unless you're Amish. Hey friends, welcome back. If you've ever huddled under 3 blankets during a winter blackout or just dread your heating bill, you're in the right place. Today, we're uncovering 15 real, time-tested ways the Amish stayed warm on the coldest blizzard nights, with zero electricity, no fancy gear, and budgets tighter than your grandma's pickle jar. I combed through Amish diaries, spoke with historians, and even tested a few of these myself. Yes, I slept with a hot brick. Don't judge. And guess what? Every single one works, and you can use them tonight, whether you live on a farm or in a studio apartment. So grab your favorite warm drink and let's dive into the ultimate guide to old-school, budget-friendly, blizzard-proof sleep. Number 1. The cast iron bed warmer. Long before electric blankets and space heaters, the Amish had a simple but brilliant trick for chasing away the cold: the cast iron bed warmer. It started with a heavy disc of cast iron or a smooth chunk of soapstone, sometimes even a clean brick. They'd place it right in the wood stove in the late afternoon, letting it soak up heat for an hour or two. Once it was hot, but not scorching, they'd wrap it tightly in a thick wool cloth or burlap sack. No bare metal touching skin, just safe, steady warmth. Then, right before bed, they'd tuck it under the covers at the foot of the mattress. Within minutes, the whole bed felt cozy. This little hot rock didn't just give a quick burst of heat, it radiated gentle warmth for 6 to 8 hours, often lasting all night. And because it held heat so slowly and evenly, there was no risk of burns or fire like with open flames or faulty wiring. Best of all, it cost nothing but a bit of stove time and a scrap of fabric. Even today, you can try it. Heat a brick in your oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour, wrap it well, and slip it into bed. No electricity, no noise, just quiet, reliable warmth that's kept families comfortable through blizzards for generations. Number 2. Wool everything, the onion method. The Amish didn't just throw on one thick blanket and hope for the best. They dressed for bed like they were heading into the Arctic, layer by layer. Think wool long underwear, thick wool socks, yes, even between the sheets, a flannel nightgown, and sometimes even a wool sleep cap. Then came the bedding, flannel sheets, a down-filled feather tick, and not one, but 2 heavy wool blankets on top. This onion method wasn't about fashion, it was physics. Wool fibers trap tiny pockets of air, and air is a fantastic insulator. Even better, wool keeps you warm when it's damp, unlike cotton, which soaks up sweat and turns icy. So while modern pajamas might feel soft, they can actually make you colder overnight. The Amish knew that staying dry and layered was the real secret, and they used what they had: hand-knit socks, repurposed wool from old coats, and quilts stitched by family. No fancy gear, no shopping sprees, just smart, breathable layers that locked in body heat all night long, even when the wind howled and snow piled high against the windows. Number 3. Small rooms, thick walls. The Amish didn't heat their whole house in winter. They heated where they slept. Their homes were built with thick walls, often 12 inches or more, stuffed with natural insulation like sawdust, straw, or wood shavings. Windows were small and few, and doors were tight-fitting to keep drafts out. But the real genius was they closed off unused rooms at night. With heavy wool curtains or simple wooden doors, they'd shrink their living space down to just 1 or 2 rooms, the kitchen and the bedroom. That way, every bit of heat from the wood stove and every breath of body warmth stayed right where it was needed. No energy wasted warming empty hallways or guest rooms. Even the layout helped. Bedrooms were often near the stove, and ceilings were lower to keep warm air from rising and disappearing. You didn't need a furnace, just smart design. And the best part? You can copy this today. Sleep in your smallest room, shut the door, hang a thick blanket over drafty spots. Suddenly, your space feels warmer without spending a dime. Number 4. The family huddle. On the coldest blizzard nights, Amish families didn't spread out. They gathered. Parents, kids, sometimes even grandparents all slept in the same room, often sharing beds or pushing cots close together. Why? Simple. More bodies mean more heat. 3 people in a bed can raise the temperature by several degrees, nature's own space heater. But they didn't just rely on cuddling. They also timed their wood stove like pros. Instead of feeding it all night, which is risky and wasteful, they'd load it with dense, slow-burning hardwood, like oak or maple, right before bedtime. That log would glow steadily for 7 to 8 hours, radiating warmth through the night without needing to be touched. The stove wasn't just for cooking. It was the heart of the home, especially in winter. And by pairing that steady heat with the natural warmth of family packed close, they turned a freezing night into something almost cozy. No thermostat, no backup generator, just smart timing, shared space, and the quiet comfort of knowing you weren't facing the storm alone. Number 5. Hot stones in stockings. When cast iron wasn't handy, the Amish turned to what the land gave them: smooth river stones. They'd collect fist-sized rocks, wash them clean, and heat them in the wood stove for an hour or two. Once warm, not blazing, they'd wrap each stone in a scrap of cloth or tuck it right into a thick wool sock. Then, just like a modern hot water bottle, they'd slide it under the covers at the foot of the bed. These stones held heat surprisingly well, often staying warm for half the night. And because they were wrapped, there was no risk of burns or cracked skin. Some families even kept a few stones rotating, cool ones going back in the stove while warm ones went to bed. It was a zero-cost, zero-waste trick that used nothing but fire, fabric, and a little foresight. Even today, if you're camping, dealing with a power outage, or just trying to cut heating bills, a heated stone in a sock is a quiet, safe, and shockingly effective way to take the chill out of your sheets. Number 6. Feather ticks over straw mattresses. Amish beds weren't just for sleeping. They were built like warmth traps. At the base, many used a mattress stuffed with dried straw. It sounds rustic, and it was, but straw is a surprisingly good insulator, blocking cold that rose from wooden floors. On top of that went the feather tick, a tightly stitched cotton sack filled with goose or duck down from their own barnyard birds. Soft, light, and incredibly warm, the tick trapped body heat like a cloud. Unlike today's memory foam or spring mattresses, this 2-layer system worked with nature. Straw below kept the cold out, feathers above held the heat in. And since both materials were renewable, straw from harvest, feathers from plucked geese, it cost almost nothing to maintain. On bitter nights, that simple combo could mean the difference between shivering and sleeping soundly. No electricity, no fancy tech, just smart use of what the farm provided, night after night, winter after winter. Number 7. Wool curtains over every opening. The Amish knew heat escapes fast, and not just through windows. Drafts sneak under doors, swirl through hallways, and vanish into empty rooms. So their fix was simple: block it all. Heavy wool curtains weren't just for windows. They hung them over doorways to unused bedrooms, pantries, even stairwells. These thick, often quilted drapes acted like thermal doors, sealing off cold zones and keeping warmth locked in the main living and sleeping areas. Many were handmade from repurposed wool blankets or feed sacks lined with scrap fabric, making them cheap, durable, and surprisingly effective. At night, once the family gathered in one room, they'd pull the curtains shut, turning a drafty farmhouse into a snug, heat-efficient cocoon. Even the smallest gap was covered, sometimes with rolled-up towels at the base of doors. It wasn't about luxury, it was about control. And with just a few pieces of fabric, they turned their entire home into a smarter, warmer shelter. No insulation upgrades or weather stripping required. Number 8. Warm milk with honey and cinnamon. Long before sleep gummies and melatonin, the Amish had a bedtime ritual that warmed from the inside out. a mug of warm milk straight from the cow, stirred with a spoonful of honey and a pinch of cinnamon. They didn't do it just for comfort, though it certainly felt like a hug in a cup. This simple drink actually helped raise core temperature gently and safely. The natural sugars in honey gave a mild energy boost, while cinnamon improved blood flow, helping warmth spread to fingers and toes. Warm milk, rich in tryptophan, also encouraged relaxation, making it easier to fall asleep fast, before the coldest part of the night set in. Best of all, everything came from their own kitchen. Milk from the barn, honey from backyard hives, and cinnamon saved for holiday baking. No store runs, no caffeine crashes, just a quiet, steamy cup that prepped both body and mind for a deep, warm sleep, even when snow piled high against the windows. Number 9. Wool sleep caps. Yes, really. You've seen the paintings, Grandpa in a nightcap looking like a storybook character. But for the Amish, that knit wool cap wasn't for show. It was serious winter gear. They knew a huge amount of body heat escapes through the head, especially when lying still for hours in a cold room. So men, women, and even children pulled on simple wool sleep caps before bed, often handmade from leftover yarn or the sleeves of worn-out sweaters. These caps covered the ears and crown snugly, trapping warmth without overheating. Wool was key. It breathes, wicks moisture, and still wool insulates even if you sweat a little. Cotton? It'd get damp and chilly fast. On blizzard nights, that humble cap could mean the difference between drifting off peacefully and lying awake shivering. And it cost nothing but a few minutes of knitting. Today, you might laugh at the idea, until your power goes out in a snowstorm. Then that old wool beanie from the back of your drawer suddenly looks like genius. 10. Shared heat from attached barns. In many traditional Amish homesteads, the house wasn't separate from the barn. It was connected by a shared wall or a short covered breezeway. This wasn't just for convenience during chores, it was a clever heat strategy. Cows, horses, and other livestock naturally maintain a body temperature around 101 degrees Fahrenheit. All that animal warmth radiated through the shared wall, gently warming the adjacent rooms in the house, especially bedrooms or the kitchen. It wasn't blazing hot, but even a few extra degrees made a real difference on sub-zero nights. Think of it as passive, free, 24/7 heating powered by hay and hooves. Of course, they kept living spaces clean and separate from the animals, but that common wall acted like a slow-release radiator. No fans, no ducts, no fuel cost. Just smart design that turned the barn into a silent partner in winter survival. Even if you don't have a cow next door, the lesson stands. Sometimes the best heat source is already nearby. You just have to build your life around it. 11. Dried corncob heat packs. After harvest, Amish families had one thing in abundance: dried corn cobs. Instead of tossing them, they put them to work as natural heat packs. They'd gather clean, dry cobs, lightweight and full of tiny air pockets, and warm them in the oven or along the edge of the wood stove. Once heated, they'd wrap the cobs in a cloth or tuck them into a small muslin sack, then place them in bed, near cold feet, or even in pockets while doing evening chores. Corn cobs hold heat surprisingly well, releasing it slowly over an hour or two. They're lightweight, biodegradable, and smell faintly sweet, like a campfire mixed with autumn fields. Some families kept a basket of them by the stove, rotating warm cobs into beds and cool ones back into the heat. It was a zero-waste, farm-to-bed solution that turned agricultural leftovers into cozy comfort. And if you've ever roasted corn over a fire, you know that warm cob feels almost like nature's hand warmer. Simple, safe, and quietly brilliant. 12. The three-blanket rule. The Amish didn't rely on one thick comforter to get them through the night. Instead, they followed what you could call the three-blanket rule, a layered system that trapped heat far more effectively. The bottom layer was always a heavy wool blanket tucked under the mattress or laid directly on the sheets. This blocked cold rising from below, especially important on wooden bed frames or upper floors. The middle layer was a homemade quilt, often stitched from scrap fabric and filled with cotton or wool batting. Its loft created insulating air pockets that held body heat in. On top, another thick wool blanket, tightly woven and dense to seal everything in like a thermal lid. This trio worked together, the bottom shielded, the middle trapped, and the top locked. Unlike a single fluffy duvet which compresses and loses warmth when you move, this layered approach stayed effective all night. And if it got too warm, just kick off the top layer. No thermostat needed, just smart, breathable, adjustable warmth using what they already had in the linen closet. And today, you can try it safely. Heat a clean brick in your oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes, wrap it in a towel, and tuck it under your mattress edge. Instant, old-school, radiant floor heating for your bed. 13. Bed bricks under the mattress. While most people think of warming the bed on top, the Amish also heated it from below. They take a common clay brick or cast iron plate, warm it in the stove for an hour, then slide it under the mattress, not inside the sheets. This turned the entire bed into a gentle, radiant heater. The heat rose slowly through the straw tick or feather mattress, warming the sleeper from the back and core without direct contact. Because it was insulated by the mattress above and bedding below, the brick stayed warm for hours, often all night. And since it wasn't touching skin or fabric directly, there was almost no fire risk. Some families even used flat stones or metal baking sheets the same way. It was a quiet, invisible source of comfort. No hissing, no cords, no fan noise. Just steady, even warmth rising up as you slept. Today you can try it safely. Heat a clean brick in your oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 minutes, wrap it in a towel, and tuck it under your mattress edge. Instant, old-school, radiant floor heating for your bed. 14. Nighttime bone broth or bean soup. The Amish knew that staying warm wasn't just about blankets and bricks. It started from the inside. On bitter winter evenings, dinner often ended with a steaming bowl of thick bean soup or slow-simmered bone broth, eaten right before bed. These weren't just hearty meals, they were strategic. Packed with protein, fat, and complex carbs, they fueled the body's natural heat production through a process called thermogenesis, where your metabolism burns calories to generate warmth. Bone broth, rich in minerals and collagen, also supported circulation, helping blood and heat reach cold hands and feet. And because these soups were made from pantry staples, dried beans, leftover bones, root vegetables, they cost almost nothing but delivered maximum comfort. Eating a warm, nutrient-dense meal before sleep meant your body wasn't just full, it was actively working to keep you warm through the coldest hours of the night. No supplements, no gadgets, just a humble bowl of soup that turned dinner into defense against the deep freeze. 15. Sleep early, rise late. The Amish didn't fight winter, they adapted to it. One of their quietest but smartest habits? Shifting their entire sleep schedule with the seasons. In the dead of winter, they'd go to bed shortly after sunset, sometimes as early as 7 or 8 p.m., and sleep until after sunrise. Why? Because the coldest, darkest hours of the night, usually 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., are also the hardest to stay warm. By sleeping through them, they avoided needing extra light, heat, or activity during the most brutal stretch. Fewer waking hours in freezing darkness meant less fuel burned, less exposure to drafts, and more restorative sleep. It also aligned with natural circadian rhythms, which thrive on consistency and darkness. There were no screens to keep them up, no late-night TV, just candlelight, quiet chores, and an early retreat to a well-prepared bed. This rhythm wasn't lazy, it was survival. And in a world obsessed with hustle, it's a gentle reminder that sometimes the wisest thing you can do in a blizzard is simply go to bed. These 15 Amish warmth hacks weren't born in a lab or sold in a store. They were forged in necessity, refined over generations, and passed down through quiet nights and howling blizzards. They prove you don't need electricity, expensive gear, or modern tech to stay warm. Just resourcefulness, respect for simple materials, and a deep understanding of how heat and humans really work. Whether you're prepping for a power outage, cutting winter bills, or just curious about old-school wisdom, these methods still hold up because they're rooted in physics, not trends. If you found even one of these tips useful, do me a quick favor. Tap that like button. It helps YouTube share this with others who need it. Subscribe for more practical, no-nonsense wisdom from the past that works better than half the gadgets we buy today. And comment below, which hack surprised you most? Have you tried sleeping with a hot brick or a wool cap? Or do you have your own family trick for beating the cold? I read every comment, and your idea might just be featured in the next video. Stay warm, stay ready, and remember, sometimes the best solutions are the ones our grandparents never forgot.